Hello, and welcome to the brand new episode of the ZigAnalysis. And this time around, as you may have already figured out from the title, we're talking about the new Swift because we finally do have a brand new Swift. Well, not just yet. It's been showcased on the floor of the Tokyo Motor Show 2023. We've also seen a new model, a more production-ready version of the Maruti Suzuki EVX. But this video is going to be focusing on the Swift and why this car is always a big deal. We've already seen the traffic also coming in on every article that just has the word Swift in it, simply because what it is that this car has meant for both India as a car market as well as Maruti Suzuki itself.
Right, and the expectations from a Swift is always sky high. And I want to give this credit to the OG Swift because to me that is the spiritual successor to the OG Zen. Because let's face it, the Estilo didn't really do a good job. I say this as someone who owned it. Don't
judge him.
That car told the masses, hey, you can have fun with your daily driver. Your daily driver does not need to be just fuel efficient. It can make you giggle, it can make you smile. The chassis was beautiful, it handled really well. It had that G13 petrol engine right at the start. It also kind of democratized diesel in a way back then. It had the national diesel engine, as we now like to call it, the 1.3 MJD. So the first gen really set the ball rolling. The second gen kind of improved on that formula. I want to say it was still fun, it was still sporty. Eventually got the K12, right? And then we came on to the third generation, or what we call the current Swift.
Yeah, and with the latest generation, it was sort of a mixed bag because as we've seen with the Swift, and with good reason, it's been evolving into something that is more and more family friendly, which meant that through the generations, it's become a little bit more about comfort, a little bit more about practicality. And the culmination of that was this current generation of the Swift. And the formula obviously worked because this car has been very well received. It is still one of the highest selling cars month after month. What happened with this generation was on the outside, especially if you got it in the right color, it looked sporty as heck. On the inside though, it was still very sensible, quite spacious, quite roomy. The boot space wasn't half bad. And of course, you saw that change even with the ride comfort package of the car, where it became a little bit softer. There's a little bit more give to the suspension. And yes, the transmission also, it moved to an AMT. So while it was still an enjoyable car to drive, if you compare it with the Ignis, anybody who would have driven those two cars back to back would have seen that the ethos or the absolute soul of the Swift was still preserved better in the Ignis than in the Swift. I won't say that as a negative, just as a characterization of the car as it is today. And now we finally come to the brand new Swift, the concept.
Yeah, it kind of does. And in this video, I think we should discuss three things. Okay, what we already know about the new Swift, what we kind of sort of know, the stuff that's rumored, and finally the stuff we want to see. I think we should start with what we know and take us through what you think of the design.
So for me, at a more fundamental level, I'm just thinking, and why I put those air quotes behind all new Swift is because, again, I'm expecting this. They've not given details about the platform per se, but by what we've seen with other Maruti Suzuki cars, including the Baleno, you're not looking at a brand new platform altogether. And that is a function of most from scratch developments now keeping electrification in mind. So that would be focused more on a Swift EV that would be incidental to an ICE. And I'm not sure that's what's happened with this car, just by the way you can look at it and tell. So what it could be is a heavily revised version of the current platform that it is running, or a mildly refined version also. And design-wise, I would say this, it will be refreshed, it will look new, it will look different, but you can still tell what car it is.
So the Swift silhouette has kind of been iconic. And Suzuki's done well to modernize it, but still keep it very easily recognizable. And that still stands with this one. The shape is, roughly the same. But they've introduced some new, very interesting elements, which I like because Suzuki's chosen to be kind of bold and daring with these choices. First up, it's got a clamshell bonnet. Second, you look at those headlamps, they have a nice smoked finish. They're a little more pointy. And it reminds me of a Nissan Fairlady.
Actually, yeah.
And there's one design element that they've kind of backtracked on with the current Swift.
The
so
door
they had
handles.
they had the rear door handle near the window. Now it's more conventionally placed. And the one angle that I'm not kind of entirely, let's say, immediately pleased by is the rear. The tail lamps kind of look tilted outwards for some very odd reason. I hope I see the Swift in person and that profile kind of grows on me. But overall, I think from a design standpoint, Suzuki's done well. Anyone who sees the car will say, that's a Swift.
Yeah, and on your point of the rear end, personally speaking, I liked how it looks. It's a little bit of a quirk, and it's definitely not like espresso levels of polarizing. But what we can expect when it comes to the Indiaification of this particular car is, one, you'll have more sensible wheel sizes, 14 to 15 inches. Of course, if you slap on a Punjab number plate, it's going to go up to 23 inches. There's going to be tinted windows. There's going to be debadging of the car. So it's going to look a lot more gangster. But apart from that, you'll have more, obviously, apart from the sensible wheel sizes, what we can also expect is a little bit more chromification. If not as standard with the car, it will be offered as the option packs along with it.
Yeah. From that, I want to move on to the interior. And Suzuki always does this, right? Now we talk about the shape, size, silhouette of the car. That kind of remains the same on the outside, but the interior experience, generation by generation, has always been completely different in the way it looks and
definitely.
feels. This one, I want to say, if you've been in a Baleno or a Franx or a Glanza,
or if you've even seen a photograph of the interior.
it will feel familiar, but it's not the same. Now, I want to touch upon the familiarity bit. There is just so much in common with what we've already seen. So that novelty factor of having something brand new is kind of lost in that equation. So the touchscreen, that's the same as the Baleno. The automatic climate control interface, the steering wheel, I'm guessing the instrumentation will be the same as well.
Pretty much
and
is.
the power window switches that Maruti Suzuki refuses to change for an eternity. So, stuff like this, like I said, it kind of makes me feel a little less excited about a brand new product because, I've seen these things already. What is new, however, on the interior is the way the dash has been set up. Again, there is inspiration from the Baleno and the Franx in the sense that the dashboard is layered. It's got 3 layers, but it still has the Swift ethos maintained there, where it's still sticking to darker, sportier tones. So there's black, there's brushed grey, right? Stuff like that, which will make the cabin feel sporty. Whether they choose to improve further on rear seat space, that is something I want to see, and of course, the boot space as well. But what do you think the Swift can do, should do, or could do in terms of the features?
Feature-wise, honestly, apart from what we've already seen, that it's got a bigger touchscreen and the automatic climate control console and all that, I'm going to keep my expectations realistic. Not going to go as far as, ventilated front seats or something like that. Maybe the addition of a wireless phone charger, maybe the inclusion of the same heads-up display rather, that we had seen with cars like the Baleno, the Glanza, the Franx, and the Grand Vitara as well.
Also a 360-degree camera, maybe, because these are features that the Baleno and the Franx get. Now, I understand if Maruti Suzuki chooses not to do this, because both the Baleno and the Franx are supposedly premium products that retail from Nexa. They can operate at a slightly higher price point. So there needs to be a little bit of differentiation between something like the Baleno, Franx and the Swift. Now, from what we know about the Swift, let's move on to what's rumored. And
the first one's not all that positive, right?
It's not.
So one of the main things that made the Swift feel like a Swift and gave it its sort of mini legend status is its engine, the K12 engine, the 1.2 liter petrol 4-cylinder naturally aspirated. Now, what we're hearing in terms of rumors, and it is quite concrete with regard to their source, is that they're switching from the K12 to an engine that certainly sounds cooler on name by its name, but the execution on a technical front, not so much, because it's called the Z12 engine, but it's a 3-cylinder naturally aspirated motor.
That genuinely seems like a step. Let's
down.
Say, it seems like a step down. It seems like they've taken one step back, and that is primarily because, let's set context with the K12, right? It was very efficient. It loved to be revved. and if you revved it, it loved to give you a bucket load of power,
Yeah.
right at the top end. But the one thing that always springs to mind when anyone talks to me about the K12 is its sheer smoothness and refinement.
Yeah.
Right? You'd have to tell people the engine is on, right, when it was idling, for them to know. My problem with the Z12, even before I've
Tried it.
yeah, is that there's not a single 3-cylinder that I've driven that was as smooth as a 4-cylinder. Not even close.
Yeah, I'd agree. My Grand, I feel like I keep on saying this. I keep referring to my Grand Vitara, but yes, the hybrid, the strong hybrid, is running a 3-cylinder.
Yeah.
I can tell you as far as I want that it's smooth, but it's again for a 3-cylinder. If I had compared it to something like Honda's hybrid that is running a 4-cylinder system, I can tell that difference.
Correct.
When I push it, the level of smoothness you get, it's just irreplaceable no matter how much counterbalancing that you might go for. And the nature of the K12 engine, that is what we really enjoyed, right? You could always push it. It felt good to push.
Yeah.
And it was just the balance, right? Between, you look at something like Hyundai's 1.2 4-cylinder, that was very smooth.
Yeah.
And then you look at Honda's iVTEC 1.2.
Yeah, that was very rev happy.
Very rev happy. The K12 was a sort of balance, and still is a balance between both these two worlds, giving you peppiness, giving you smoothness, and let's not forget incredible fuel efficiency too.
Correct. So with a 3-cylinder comes that inherent thrumminess, the vibiness that Maruti Suzuki will really have to work hard to kind of counter. There's also word of the Z12 being lower on par, but tunes being made for drivability. Now, I'm not really going to comment on it till I actually see the power figures and till we actually drive it.
But
and
something that we do want them to do has to do with the one topic that obviously a lot of you would have brought up already, and that is the Swift's crash safety.
Right.
Now, I find this as a lot of people do say, oh, these NCAP ratings don't count. Other people say that it counts for a lot. Plain and simple, yes, a car should have good crash safety. This is not even debatable.
Correct.
And this is not a track record that we've seen with Maruti Suzuki in general so far for the most part. And one of those cars has been the Swift. It hasn't performed very good in crash safety ratings. And generally the image of the car, it's not doing itself any favors when we keep seeing those reels and videos. But consequentially, if they can make, and this shouldn't be an if, but they need to make a car that has got a stronger structure.
yeah.
And be competent enough to, at the very least, deliver 3 to 4 stars. 5 stars would be great.
Yeah.
But 3 to 4 stars in the Bharat NCAP crash test, if we can expect that. If we can see Maruti Suzuki for sure volunteering the Swift to be crash tested, that itself would be very important, because let's not forget, this is a car that thousands of Indians are going to be driving.
Yeah.
It's important.
What I want to see Maruti Suzuki do better with the new Swift is in terms of the automatic experience. Because currently, for most Indian cities, a manual car is just a headache. I know the Swift is supposed to be a driver's car. I am not going to be blind to that fact. So the manual is important to the Swift. But for those who want a car to be driven on a daily basis, the AMT experience is cost effective. It works. But I remember Tushar and I, we've reviewed countless AMTs over the years. We've said, hey, this AMT is smooth, but it's always almost suffixed by for an AMT.
Yeah, the Baleno got very close to that by saying that it's almost as good as a proper automatic, but that almost prefix is almost always going to be there.
Too many almost. But anyway, so a CVT, if they can do, is something I'd be very happy with. A torque converter would be epic because they already have that in the Fronx. So I want to see a better automatic. And finally, what we expect from the Swift is a better
brand
Swift.
new Swift, apart from the brand new
A
Swift.
sportier Swift, yeah.
The Swift Sport, perhaps. Oh, did you think of that name? Yeah. So I'll tell you this, right? We have had a lot of jealousy looking at reporters and automotive journalists from the UK driving this car, the Swift Sport, and raving on about how amazing it is, how underrated it is. Yeah, we know. We've been selling so many Swift, but Maruti Suzuki so far has shown absolutely no interest in doing more than an Auto Expo showcase of the Swift Sport.
Yeah.
And now that we have seen that Maruti Suzuki itself has been pushing the envelope in terms of what budget spaces they're playing at, right? taken the game up a level with the brand new Brezza. Then they moved it up further with the Grand Vitara, and it's now peaking with the Invicto.
Yeah.
So let's just say that Maruti Suzuki now has familiarity with more expensive segments, more lifestyle-focused segments, and there's, in the way we as car enthusiasts see it, there's no reason for them to not bring in the Swift Sport or a sportier Swift with a bigger engine, more sporty looks, design, maybe bigger wheels, more stiff suspension, or outright if they could get the Swift Sport and start making it in India, nothing like it.
Sure.
But at the very least, maybe a Swift RS equivalent with the Franx's booster jet.
Sure, because, okay, another way of looking at this is Maruti Suzuki, for the first time since the Gypsy was taken off, they dabbled into the lifestyle space again with something like the Jimny, right? Sure, they had to Indianize it, make it a 5-door and all of that. But with the way that product is performing, I think it gives Maruti Suzuki reasonable confidence to take a jab at the lifestyle space again. And like you said, with something like the Invicto, if Maruti Suzuki can today proudly put a 30 lakh rupee car on sale, there's nothing stopping them from saying, hey, let us experiment a little. Because I'm not saying something like the Swift Sport is going to go flying off the shelves, right? It's going to be super limited, super niche, but there are customers that are willing to pay for it because they know what it is.
And just think about what it does for the Maruti Suzuki image as well, right? You're trying to portray yourself as this lifestyle brand. Like Nexa's branding has always been very sec-A, very enthusiast, very niche. Back it up with more products now, and you have started showing signs of it. Follow through with this, because this is one we've been demanding for quite a long time.
Also, I have another reason. Suzuki, we are your biggest market.
Yeah.
Please give us
start taking more of a gamble on us, maybe.
So yeah, that's the long and short of what we expect from, what we know of, and what is rumored about the new Maruti Suzuki Swift. We should see a launch sometime next year. A Swift Dzire it's not called the Swift Dzire anymore. A Dzire is also confirmed, will be on the same platform, will share a few of its visual elements and the interior with the Swift. So yeah, that's coming next year, something definitely Tushar and I are looking forward to driving. If you've got any questions, queries or doubts, please leave them in the comments down below. If you want to argue with us in the comment section, more than welcome to do it. Just gives us more engagement. Anything you want to add?
Nothing. Like, share, subscribe. If you dislike. If you like, everything else. And of course, follow us on Instagram as well. Thanks a ton for watching, and goodbye.
Bye.